And I'm told we are live. I'm going to let people connect and play with a cool new toy here if I can get it to connect as well. So we'll see here. And here we go. Ah, nice. Fun little toy that I got recently. So yeah, let's see. I'm trying to think if I have a way to see who's actually in or not. I don't know if I do. This is kind of new to me as well, so I apologize in advance for seeming so unprofessional for this whole non-professional thing I'm doing. Nonetheless, if anyone is on, happy May 4th, everybody. The kind of official, unofficial Star Wars day. So I figured why not do something special today and just do a off-the-cuff little thing with that. Let's see if this is actually working here. I see myself, I think. So I think that means we're live. Yeah, all right. So, Steve, good to see you. Without, actually seeing you, I guess, is the way that works. But yeah. Awesome stuff. And hopefully this is streaming well. I'm seeing some buffering issues on my other computer, so I'm hoping that this is actually keeping a live connection here. All right, so yeah, we're just going to run through it and see how it goes. And who knows, maybe I'll just need to post a recording of this at a later date, but we're going to do it. All right, so I see. Okay, great. I'm just going to close this window here and just let people get on as they want to, and they'll join Bid Story. And I think the way this works is that it will do its thing later on. So I'm hoping that I can actually bear with me a second here. Hopefully everyone is I don't know. Missed opportunity. I had this awesome little crawl that you know how most Star Wars movies start off with a crawl, and I thought I had this queued up to go, and it turns out that I do not. So we'll have to try that another day. So that is a shame, but anyway, my name is DJ Eshelman. I am the author of this little story called Avenger Alliance, Gorono's Revenge. Now, the funny thing about this is a role-playing character that I had back in the late 90s. And so, yeah, it was just a fun time doing this role-playing and storytelling and that sort of thing. And so I said, you know what, why not just start writing a story? And so I actually started writing the story in 1997. Now, if you're fluent in Star Wars timelines, then you know that 1997 is right about the time where they came out with the special edition and things got kind of weird from there. So the story itself, not to ruin anything, but it takes place right before the Battle of Yavin, which is the first Death Star when that was destroyed. And so this story takes place just right before that, and in fact overlaps with that story completely, actually. So yeah, fun time for all. Sure, but the thing about it is you have to realize two things. One, I didn't know anything about Marvel's Avengers, and so this has literally nothing to do with that. Two, I started writing this story and the framework and everything like that well before any of the special editions, well before any of the first episode 1, 2, 3, definitely before the Rogue One. And so there are some continuity issues that would come up with that for sure, because of the timeline that I have with all this. Actually, I think by and large it fits okay. In fact, it actually helps explain a few things that I was having trouble explaining in the book, as far as why there were so few ships on the first Death Star attack. So that actually it's helpful to explain that sort of thing. So actually, in a way, I could probably just retcon some of this and make it work. But all right, so I'm going to take a little drink here. And we're going to get started. Sorry, no theme music. I didn't want to get a ding from whomever, but let's see here. So I think this is working, and I can go full screen, I hope. Trying to remember how to do this. Yes, Control L. There we go. In the darkness. I love it. All right, here we go. Avenger Alliance. Fiction. If you reproduce this or sell it in any way, you're on your own. May the force be with you. Dedicated to my wife. She's a great big Star Wars fan, and who knows, might even be watching right now. I have no idea. I forgot to remind her. And I'm not going to leave the room to do it. Also to my friend Adam Burns, who actually was running the first campaign that we ran all this in. So thanks, Adam. And yeah, the blatant stealing of storylines and gimmicks and everything like that is mostly on purpose. So apologize if that offends, but yeah, I like giving little nods to other genres within my stories. It's fun. Part 1, Battle of Yavin. Chapter 1. A body. More precisely, pieces of a body, floating dead in space. Pieces of a burnt orange flight suit attached to, or perhaps welded onto, the skin. There has been a battle here, a fierce battle. Part of the slain pilot's arm lightly grazes the burning remains of a Star Destroyer that has somehow been embedded into a large chunk of what used to be the Empire's most feared battle station. Debris is scattered by a passing patrol ship, debris that includes what is left of the pilot's helmet, the severed head still inside. The helmet turns in space, revealing a face that resembles a small girl's screams, or at least lets out a partial scream that is cut off as the bolt from the stormtrooper's blaster sears through her cerebral cortex, cutting off the signal to the vocal cords controlling the scream. The mother is next. She refuses to be quiet. It was a toy gun, no threat to anyone. The girl did not deserve to die. The mother does not scream, only cries a single tear as she is executed. A young man watches from his hiding place, unable to move, shocked at what has just happened, an understandable anger building within him. "Break right!" his wingman screams into the comm. "The TIE is firing!" Too late. The bolts of energy cut through the ship's feeble shields, penetrating the power core. Though the ship is almost immediately vaporized, the pilot has enough time to cry out in sheer pain as the heat increases, and his body is burned away by the small nuclear explosion from within the craft. As the wingman shoots the TIE down, he realizes that this pilot will haunt his dreams. That will be easier to read, I think. Here's where our crawl should be. It is a period of civil war. The Galactic Empire, under Emperor Palpatine, has constructed a fearsome battle station called the Death Star. The Alliance to restore the Republic has begun active resistance against the Empire, recruiting pilots, mercenaries, and even former pirates to fight for the cause. The Alliance is bringing all resources to bear against this new threat, including defectors from the Empire, which are being pursued. The Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Vader, is personally overseeing the capture of the defecting scientists and has directed the Imperial Star Destroyer Razor to pursue one such defector. It's a crawl, after all. Gorono, wake up, kid. So it all had been a bad dream. At least he hoped so. But there were so many dreams lately. As he forced his eyes to draw into focus, his brain began assimilating reality. He realized he felt as if it was still burning. The pain was so real. So perhaps it wasn't a dream after all. But if it wasn't a dream, that meant, come on, we've got a situation out there, you Lieutenant. Define situation for me, if you please, Gorono said blandly. He wasn't a first shift kind of a person, and frankly, hadn't been sleeping all that well lately. Then again, he wasn't sure if it was really morning at all. As far as we can ascertain, we are up against at least 40 TIE fighters and probably an Imperial-class Star Destroyer, but there could be more. The short of it is that we cannot give them time to call in reinforcements. We have to give our ships enough time to escape, and you will serve as the diversion. If we need to jump to hyperspace before your ship is on board, you will have the coordinates pre-programmed into your nav computer. If you run into trouble, your contact is on Dantooine, Shadow Base Dark. Wow, thanks for the optimism. Great. This guy was making it sound like Gorono was taking on all these ties by himself. The thought made him shudder. At least 40 ties? Great. The briefing continued, but Gorono Haltana had stopped actively listening. Something about a wingman, read 3. Gorono had learned long ago not to learn names. It hurt too much having the name of a dead pilot hanging over your head, especially when you had downtime. Lying awake, wondering why you were alive and they weren't. Wondering if you'd be the next nameless rebel pilot knocked off by the endless power of the Empire. And then there were the dreams. For some time now, Gorono had been having dreams about pilots that had either just died or were about to die. Often the dreams recaptured the event with such accuracy and gruesome detail that it was easy for Intel to analyze what had gone wrong in missions. That is, when Gorono told them the dreams. Mostly he tried to forget them. Lately, he hadn't really been telling Intel any of them, as they had increased in frequency and it was getting harder to tell what was future and what was past. That, and he'd been on remote assignment for quite a while now. The problem was that the dreams were always spot on. They happened exactly as he had dreamed. Gorono had no control over when he would have the dreams, of course. Intel always wanted verifiable information with a predictable accuracy. Gorono didn't really know what was worse, when the dreams came true or when he had warned people and they proceeded anyway. He often wondered if reporting the premonitions was actually the cause of the events having happened. It was confusing and above all frustrating. The feelings themselves were literally painful. Every time a pilot or trooper died, Gorono could feel their life leaving them in an indescribably putrid feeling. Black, empty, frightening. He wasn't sure who had cursed him with this ability, but he was convinced that whoever had done this was completely evil. No one should endure such torture. Gorono once heard someone on his home planet of Alderaan talk about something called the Force. The man had called Gorono Force sensitive, but Gorono didn't buy it, at least not on the outside. The Force to him was a curse, not a blessing or a power. The truth was, he knew the Force was with him. But he often felt like the next time someone said to him, "May the Force be with you," he would punch them in the face, hard. The Force wasn't with him as much as forcibly attached. Maybe that is why they called it the Force. It was unpredictable, impossible to control, and most importantly, you had no way to choose not to have it. Gorono Haltana, as a result, relied on himself, on his strength, on his skills, his intimidation, his intelligence got him through. He didn't need to be helped by anyone or anything like some outside force. He was just fine on his own. He had won the respect of many, either by the occasional tavern brawl or simply by his superior piloting instincts. Needless to say, few crossed him, and those that did soon regretted it. Gorono simply carried himself accordingly. But right now, all his feelings about the Force meant very little. He had the responsibility of saving this ship, even if it cost him his life. This is something that Gorono had been committed to for the last year, ever since meeting Admiral Akbar and Mon Mothma, who had personally convinced him that the best way to avenge his mother and sister was to help others defeat the rising empire. Long ago, or at least it seemed long ago, actually it had only been a year, he started working for various pirates who needed starfighter exports. He quickly learned not to ask questions about the cargo he was protecting. Today was no exception. He simply didn't need or want to know. His focus was on doing what he did best: opening a hole in the Imperial TIE fighter blockade big enough to allow the ship through. And, if time allowed, he'd take out some aggression on the leftover ties. But he rarely got that opportunity. Perhaps today would be different. But all things considered, 40 TIE fighters didn't leave a whole lot of time to be extravagant. Gorono just hoped that he had good wingmen for this mission. I lose my place. That was one distinct advantage flying with the Alliance so far. The pilots were much better than average. Better than average pirates, anyway. Pirates were far too self-centered to use as wingmen. Besides, Gorono simply didn't trust pirates. Not anymore. The Alliance was exactly what the name implied: teamwork. At first, Gorono was resistant to this military-style fighting. He had his own ideas and unique methods of fighting that, frankly, didn't work in a team. As time went by, however, Gorono began to see that his role was in leadership. After only a few months, he was a lieutenant, and rumor had it that he would soon be called Captain Haltana. Yes, Captain Gorono Haltana. Had a certain ring to it. His father would be proud. Lieutenant Haltana forced himself not to think about his family, not to think about his home, or holding his one love, Nina, facing the warm Alderaan sunset. Gorono would have periodic dreams about never being able to return home, and not knowing why. He couldn't escape the foreboding feeling that something horrible was going to happen to all of them. After the brutal mother of his sister and mother, he couldn't help it. It was that murder that drove Gorono to seek revenge against the culprit, so-called Galactic Empire, and anyone associated with them. He just hoped that Father could reach Senator Organa in time to relay Gorono's message about the trap being laid for the Tantive 4. But that was not his concern today. His concern was with the safety of his ship. Gorono did actually know what the cargo of the ship was. The ship was doing a routine run of supplies and parts for the Alliance. At least that's what the crew was told. But Gorono knew better. This was a modified Corellian corvette, inspired by the Far Star to fit a hangar bay. A fast cargo ship with a lot of firepower and premier supplies. In actuality, the ship was carrying a very important cargo. A man by the name of Dr. Walix Blissix, perhaps the finest starship architect in his time. The ship was bound for a remote planet in the Yavin system. There, Blissix would work with General Jan Dodana, developing a new starfighter. But Blissix had to get there first, and that was the challenge. Major Vahrid continued his briefing in the ship's hangar. "Your last battle damaged your X-Wing's aft stabilizers, and we won't have replacement parts until we reach our destination. You will fly a modified Incom Z-95 Headhunter." Gorono frowned. The Headhunters were slow and fragile. This was going to be a more difficult task than he had imagined. Vahrid continued. "The Z-95 has been fitted with a new prototype sensor jammer that should help. Try to make it back alive. This is the only model we have." Vahrid smiled, expecting to see Gorono at least smirk at his little joke. Gorono stared stone-faced into his eyes, telling him without words to move this along. "Remember, Lieutenant, as far as anyone but the two of us know, we are headed for Dantooine. If you run into trouble, your contact is there, but this ship is not headed there. This cargo is very important. The Alliance is depending on you. Good luck. May the Force be with you. Gorono winced. He just had to say that, didn't he? Gorono eyed the Z-95 headhunter. He would have almost preferred a Y-wing to this piece of junk. Something was different about the Z-95, however. It was fitted with a box on the nose that was surely a sensor jammer, but there was more. Auxiliary cannons. What the words escaped Gorono before he could halt them. How are they being powered? A Z-95 is such a very small power core. He looked around the ship, enthralled by this new adaptation. The Z-95 had a small cargo area that was now gutted and had a small power core slightly protruding from it. The deck officer noticed Gorono's gawking stares and approached him. Sir, I don't have time to explain everything, but Dr. Blissix asked that you be very careful with the ship. He's rather proud of his work. He also says the extra power core may bleed into the shields, but only if necessary. It hasn't really been field tested, and don't tell anyone about this. Gorono wasn't exactly sure about this. He didn't exactly like the idea of being a personal concept test pilot for a man he'd never even met. The design looked solid enough, but who really knows? Actually, it looked like fun. Good luck, Lieutenant. Thank you, Gorono answered back without emotion. Yes, fun indeed. Sorry, small adjustment. Chapter 2. Red 3's voice crackled over the intercom. I count a total of 40 ties, Red Leader. They appear to be in 8 groups of 5 fighters each. Alpha and Theta are holding steady at 35 clicks, waiting for our jump point. Beta and Eta are at 30 clicks. Group Delta has at 25 clicks and closing. 25 ties waiting to attack the ship before the jump point. The other 15, we're going to take out the snub fighters. Red 3 continued. Group Gamma is at 10 clicks from the Liberator's starboard bow and closing in. Group Omicron is closing in on port side, 10 clicks. And Group Iota is directly ahead, 9 clicks and closing very fast. Diversion. But for whom? Gorono activated the comm link. Gold Leader, watch closely for TIE bombers coming in. Position yourself behind the Liberator. Green Leader, stay with Gold Group. Got a real bad feeling about this. Blue Group, form a flanking barrier around the front of the ship at a distance of 5 clicks. If the TIEs engage you, pour all the power in engines and try to draw them away from the ship. Engage the fighters only if they come within 2 clicks of the ship. Red 2, take Red 3 and attack Group Iota. I'll take out as many as possible and move to Eta Group as an attempt to draw Delta away. Remember, we don't have to get them all. We just have to get a clear space for the Liberator to break through and hyperspace out. The Alliance is counting on you, boys. Let's do it. Red 2 thought about asking why Gorono was taking on all 5 ties of Eta and then Delta, but then he recalled seeing the extra guns on his Z-95. He didn't know about the sensor jammer. Red 3 was a fresh greenie and didn't know any better. Are you sure about that move, Gold? Are you sure about that move, Red Leader? The young pilot, who couldn't be over 19 standard years old, asked nervously. Cut the chatter, Red 3. Follow Red 2. I have a prototype sensor jammer that will deaden all the scopes, including yours. Imperial pilots are trained to use their technology to fight. Without sensors, they will panic, draw reinforcements from Delta Group. Gorono's voice became strict. Your job is to take out Iota and assist Blue Group with Gamma and Omicron. If I need your help, I will signal you. Red Leader, out. Gorono's patience was wearing thin, but he did his best not to show it. Impatience was a form of weakness. A weak leader meant a weak crew. The Alliance couldn't afford that weakness. He probably didn't need to explain himself either, but the reality was that the Alliance simply wasn't as disciplined as the Empire. And in this case, Gorono couldn't afford to have some green pilot with delusions of heroism getting himself killed just because he thought he could help. Red Leader, Group Iota is accelerating to attack speed. I see it, Red 2. Don't go straight at them. Just take evasive maneuvers, then spin around behind them. Red 3, cover Red 2. Don't get stupid. Just stick with your wingman. Gorono said. Maybe he was micromanaging, but he had a bad feeling about the way his number 2 pilot had said that. Sometimes a short reminder is required. TIE fighters were, of course, the most deadly head-to-head pilots when pilots were inexperienced. Best to keep moving where targets were more difficult for them. Copy, Red Leader. Red 2 responded with a bit of nervousness. Captain, get me all the mechanics, techs, and engineers on this ship and send them down to the X-Wings in the hangar. Dr. Walix Blissix said to the captain of the Liberator. Is there some reason this is suddenly so important? Can it wait, Doctor? The captain asked. Doctor, after all, was just the humorous honorary title bestowed upon this particular miracle worker, who just happened to be one of the core people who had started the rebellion in the first place. Of course, he was one of the few who knew that at all. Sorry, I think we can boost the shield and laser power with generators on the injured X-Wings we have stacked in that psychotic hangar bay your predecessor had built into this blockade runner. But we need to work fast. When I finish, we'll throw all available standard power into the engines to get us out of here quicker. I have a feeling that Lieutenant Haltana will be able to give us some more time, and we're going to need it, Blissix said. The crews went to work immediately. Getting the power cores out of the injured X-Wings was no problem. Getting them to supply the shield generators was a bit more difficult and time-consuming. We'll have to override the safety system and regulate the power manually, Blissix was saying to Attack. The thing we will have to watch the closest is the temperature on the converters. We'll only be able to move at full speed for a short time before they overload and vaporize us all. We must be cautious. The tech laughed, partially because this man had a sense of humor to match his awesome mind, but mostly because of the irony that he was perhaps contributing the most to his own rescue. Other men of his caliber would be sitting in their quarters wondering if they would ever see their families again. Blissix, on the other hand, was calm, yet had a distinctive authority in his voice that motivated people. He wouldn't make a bad politician, the tech thought with a smile. He pictured the man on a galactic city on Coruscant, in the Senate Hall, fixing computer terminals and boosting the efficiency of power converters whenever he was in plenary. Yeah. All 5 of the TIE fighters fired at the same time. Red 2, who had far more experience than Red 3, was out of range before they had a chance to fire. Red 3 dove in a follow pattern but was clipped by 2 laser blasts. Gorono, who was already ahead of both of them, noticed the TIEs turning to follow and engaged the front 2 TIEs in a fast barrel roll. The first TIE to explode in a ball of flame appeared to be the leader because the remaining 4 had a moment of confusion that quickly turned deadly. By reflex, Red 2 turned on the remaining 3 TIEs behind the new leader. 1 TIE was heading for Red 3, and 2 decided to take him out first. After a short parry, the TIEs joined his leader in oblivion. Meanwhile, Red 3 was following a TIE on 2's back. It took a little longer, but Red 3 finally got the TIEs in kill position and fired, but not before the TIE was able to smack Red 2 with 2 shots. Sorry about that, Red 3 said. As 3 was speaking, another TIE exploded. Gorono broke in, all right, boys. Get this last one and be ready for any other attacks. Gorono was already on the way to cause the destruction of Ada Group. They won't know what hit him, he thought himself. That is, assuming this works. It happened that Ada was on its way to assist the now-defunct Iota Group and was forming an attack position when Gorono engaged the sensor jammer. In the resulting confusion, the TIEs started firing randomly. Before Gorono could get there, Ada 1 burst into flames. Ada 4's stray laser bolts had hit directly into Ada 1's feeble power core. It's working out better than I thought, Gorono said to himself. Unable to visually see what is going on, Ada 3 turned sharply to get a bearing on where the rest of the group was. He could see no one on the side because of the flat solar wings flanking him, and seeing behind him was, well, impossible. In a moment of panic, the Imperial pilot next to him had a similar response, only he turned left instead of the right as Ada 3 had. Neither pilot had the chance nor premonition to scream. Not that screaming about it would help. A smile crossed Gorono's lips. It didn't seem fair, really. It didn't seem very noble or valiant to eradicate an enemy that didn't have any clue where its attacker was coming from. Then again, it was neither noble nor vigilant for 12 Imperial stormtroopers to gun down Gorono's little sister for holding a toy blaster. Nor was it valiant to gun down his mother for begging the local magistrate to explain why. His sister was just 6 years old. The crosshairs aligned themselves, and another Imperial baby killer was dead. The smile had left Gorono's face. The emblazoned rebel pilot did not blink before their last remaining TIE and Eta group was scattered into the vacuum of space. An insatiable rage welled up in Gorono now. Life suddenly meant very little, and death even less. Unlike Imperial pilots who flew for credits and the endless quest for promotion, Gorono flew for one purpose: revenge. Sure, many of the pilots and troopers around him flew for glory, and a few for vengeance, but often it seemed like most of them were in this because there was nothing better to do. Gorono was different. He would not stop until every person associated with the evil of the Empire was destroyed, or he himself was dead. Blind to the risk, Gorono charged into 5 unexpected TIEs in Delta Group. Though blind without their sensors, Delta leaders spotted Gorono early enough to direct all 5 of them at him. Knowing he could not possibly outmaneuver them, Gorono charged straight ahead at a tight barrel roll, firing all lasers directly at the leader. Perhaps not the textbook strategy, but Gorono's only a few pilots who could effectively fire at an enemy while in this maneuver. Delta leader was as close as any Imperial pilot to being considered a hotshot pilot. Out of the 5 TIEs, he was the only one to actually hit Gorono 3 times. Gorono immediately adjusted strategy and banked hard left with one hand while adjusting the shields with the other. Seeing that Delta 4 was directly ahead, Gorono quickly shot and destroyed the TIE, all while in the turn. Despite Gorono's best efforts, Delta leader still outmaneuvered him and settled behind him to intercept. A laser bolt clipped Gorono's starboard wing, barely missing the stabilizer. Directly ahead of the 2 was Delta 5, still confused and blind without sensors. Gorono shot just over the TIE, missing on purpose to draw him in range. The TIE turned and flew directly at him. Gorono did not fire. He turned the sensor jammer off and accelerated to full throttle, adjusting the ship's orientation for the next move. As soon as he felt the TIEs had a sure fix on its position, Gorono reached for the sensor jammer switch with one hand while pushing forward hard on the joystick with the other. Delta leader, who had accelerated to full speed as well, did not have time to react when Delta 5 narrowly missed slamming into Gorono's Z-95, instead slamming directly into the flying tin can known as Delta leader's TIE fighter. Gorono was about to start on Delta 2 and 3 when he heard over the comlink, "Attention flight leaders, the Imperial-class Star Destroyer Razor has arrived and has launched 5 TIE interceptors and 5 bombers." Gorono broke his attack to direct his troops. "Gold leader, green group, take out those bombers first and then worry about the interceptors. Let them fly past you. Blue group, form up behind the ship and take out those interceptors. Liberator, this is Red leader. How close are you to getting out of here?" "Red leader, this is Liberator. We will reach the jump point in approximately 10 minutes. Do what you can. Liberator out." "Red leader, this is Blue leader. Give us just a moment. There are 2 more TIEs in Gamma group, and Omicron is now accelerating to attack speed. I've lost Blue 3, and I'm not in the best shape myself." Lieutenant Haltana frowned. "Red 2, anything you can do to help?" "We'll try, sir," Red 2 replied. Just then, a TIE fighter from Delta Group opened fire, taking Gorono's attention away from the other remaining Delta Group member. The ploy failed. The TIE quickly met its doom. The TIE had fired on seemed to have the potential of becoming a great pilot, but he had chosen the wrong employer. He paid a high price for doing so, as his TIE was ripped apart by the better pilot. Suddenly, Gorono felt his gut wrench, and an all too familiar, painful emptiness washed over him. He shivered in his flight suit. He knew it had happened before the message came over the comlink. Red Leader, this is Blue 2. I've lost Blue Leader. What do I do? Just stay calm, Blue 2. I want you to form up with Red 2 and 3. He paused. Second, I want you to get the son of a bitch that killed one of our best pilots. I'm on my way over. Be advised that your scopes will go dead, so get the ties in visual range before engaging them. Red 3 was frightened. Charging headlong into Omicron groups seemed like suicide. Without cue, all 3 rebel pilots opened fire on Omicron Leader, transforming one of the Emperor's finest into flak. Red 2 seized what little remaining time he had and took out Omicron 2. Blue 2 had a short parry with Omicron 3, eventually overtaking him in the end. Sorry, quick break. The left stabilizer wing on Delta 2's TIE fighter exploded. Whoever this rebel scum is, he has bested not only me, but 2 other complete flight groups. I hope he rots in hell. Then something amazing happened. The rebel pilot turned away. Without killing Delta 2, who was pretty much useless as the remains of his TIE tumbled awkwardly through space. Gorono smiled, not a huge smile, but a smile nonetheless. He found an odd contentment about leaving one of the Imperial Navy's finest behind, alive to tell his horror story to his commander. A horror story about how over 40 TIEs were defeated by mere C-95s. The pilot was as good as dead anyway, as the Empire had a high fatality rate for men who failed in their missions, but not before the report was given. Meanwhile, the remaining 2 TIEs in Omicron group maneuvered to gang up on Red 3. Sure, pick on the green, Red 2 thought to himself. Working together, the TIEs managed to take Red 3's shields completely down. Red 3, get out of there, Blue 2 shouted into his comlink. We're almost there. But the TIEs were more experienced, and Omicron 5 managed to take out Red 3's hyperdrive before Red 2 clipped him in the starboard wing. The TIE immediately broke off the attack to evade. Red 2, Howland Butch Guhar, had been trained in the Z-95. He knew the ship inside and out. Defending TIEs lasted 15 seconds before the more experienced pilot blew him away. Unfortunately, Blue 2 was not as proficient. Aiming for Red 3's pursuing TIE, he managed to somehow miss and nail 3 right on the port side engine. The TIE pilot laughed as he evaded further. Butch was angry, to say the least. He had a total of 10 hours of sleep during this whole entire trip, which had been 5 standard days now. If this greenie died on him, he wouldn't be able to sleep. That is, if he managed to live through this. Translation, TIE Fighter Omicron 4 was about to die. Red 3 was panicked. With no shields and only 1 engine, he couldn't possibly last against his pursuing TIE Fighter, who was about to get a lock on his failing ship. A red light indicating a lock lit up on his panel, and the young pilot closed his eyes, knowing his doom was imminent. He could feel the Imperial pilot smile as he pressed the trigger. He felt the explosion rock the ship. He heard Red 2's voice in the comlink. All right, you're all clear, kid. Get back to the Liberator. You can't do any more good here. Red 3 opened his eyes. He was alive. Why? In the back of his mind, he knew that Red 2 had taken out the TIE before he could fire, but his conscious mind couldn't accept it. The fact was, he should be dead. Gorono shook his head. Red 3 wasn't responding. Red 3, this is Red Leader. Are you all right? Respond. I should be dead right now. Red 3, are you able to respond? Answer me, soldier. Answer me, soldier. Gorono could hear the kid breathing. He was alive, but too shaken up to answer. Gorono's voice calmed down. Red 3, I never caught your name. Red 2 looked up in surprise. Lieutenant Gorono Haltana wants to know the name of a pilot who likely wouldn't make it home alive? What's going on here? Collins, Red 3 responded. Rick Collins. Well, Collins, here's what we're going to do. We're going to forget about this battle for right now, and you're going to follow me back to the Liberator. Nice and easy, okay? Just keep your eyes on my ship, and we'll get there. Gorono's voice, for perhaps the first time since Butch had ever heard, was soothing, yet in control. Red 2 join Gold and Green groups. Take out those interceptors. Let them worry about the bombers. Things were moving quickly aboard the Liberator. Blizzix had thrown together perhaps the oddest-looking, but nonetheless ingenious, shield generator for the ship. Sir? A non-com was talking to the captain. We're about 5 minutes from the jump point. TIE fighter groups Alpha, Beta, and Theta are all accelerating attack speed. The captain jumped to the tactical screen, cursed, and then spoke into the comlink. Red Leader, this is Liberator. Time to turn on that charm, buddy. We've got 15 ties at 3 clicks and closing fast. The captain didn't mention that these Corellian corvettes were fast, but couldn't take much of a beating. The usual nature and construction of this particular ship, maneuverability and shielding were reduced as well. Lieutenant Haltana acknowledged, adding, shields to double front. It's not looking good, but at least there was no reason to get his crew any more upset. Only 3 bombers left, Green Leader was saying. Gold 2, watch yourself. You picked up a squint. We're going to try and cut him off. Just hold on. Y-Wings were far more durable than Z-95s. Durable against TIE fighters was one thing, but against 2 added laser cannons on an interceptor, that was quite another. Gold 2 was becoming painfully aware of the difference the additional cannons made as his shields failed. Then his stabilizers. Then life support. The last thing Gold 2 heard was Green Leader shouting, "No!" Gorono's stomach leaped into his throat once again. Another death of yet another good pilot. Die, you son of a bitch, Red 2 shouted, just before shooting down the offending TIE interceptor. Good work, Red 2, Gold Leader said. Gold 3 and I are going to try these last bombers. Green Group, form up behind us and watch for those interceptors. Gorono wished he could speed things up with Collins, but the kid was so traumatized. Strike up one for the psych ward. Collins, you still with me? Yeah. We're just about there. Come on, kid. Snap out of it. The tactical officer aboard the Liberator broke in. Flight leaders, this is Liberator. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Shields are holding, sir, but we're about 3 minutes away from the jump point, the navigator was telling the captain. Put as much power into those engines and engage Dr. Blizzix's power supply for the shields, the captain said with a wince. I hope this works. Shields can only charge to 70%, but our speed has increased. Estimated time to jump point, 2 minutes. Well, the captain thought, let's hope that's just enough time. Very good. Proceed. One thing about these Corellian corvettes, Bluetooth thought to himself, sure can move. An enemy TIE aligned itself into his crosshairs, and he fired. After 3 misses, he finally hit and destroyed the TIE. 2 more TIEs were also destroyed by the Liberator's cannons. Lights on the Liberator's tactical display began blinking frantically with an accompanying alarm to match each pulse. One of the TIE bombers had a lock. 12 more TIEs were attacking. This was going to be interesting. Liberator, lock tractor beam onto Red 3 and pull him in. Gold Group, what is the situation with these bombers? Gold Leader swallowed hard. He had taken out 1 bomber, as had his partner, but the last bomber was now in range. 1 left, but that one is preparing to fire. He's out of our range. There are still 3 more interceptors out here, boys, and they seem to have taken a liking to Green 2. Two, break right! Too late. Green 2 exploded into a yellow-pink ball of flame. 2 of the interceptors had fired at the same time. The 3rd interceptor was busy dodging Red 2's relentless attack. Though interceptors usually took a few hits, Red 2 was lucky, scored a direct hit to the power core. Then watched in horror as 4 proton torpedoes left the remaining TIE bomber, which was on a suicide course for the Liberator. The ties then exploded, and Red 2 heard Gold Leader saying, "Nice shot, Jensen," to Gold 3. To put it lightly, Gorono's pissed off. Verified once again that his hyperspace coordinates were active, and Red Leader, this is X-Wing Squadron Renegade. Looks like you could use some help. Nice of you boys to stop by, Gorono replied, easing his hand off the hyperspace actuator. Shields are down to 14%, sir, Atek was saying, wiping the blood from his face, a fresh wound from an unexpected explosion on the bridge when one of the shield units failed. The captain frowned. How long before we can make the jump to hyperspace? 30 seconds, the tech replied. Begin pre-hyperspace preparation. Attention flight leaders, we are 30 seconds from the jump point. See you in... Captain! A tactical officer broke in. We have 4 proton torpedoes headed for us. All color dropped from the captain's face. Get Dr. Ballistics to a shuttle right now and stand by to launch. All gunners, focus all firepower at those torpedoes. Gotta love those X-Wings, Gorono thought to himself. The Renegade squad had already taken out 4 of Tie Group Theta. Blue 2 had taken out the last interceptor, and Gorono had eliminated 2 ties himself. So 6 ties were left, 3 of which were pursuing Gorono's Z-95. There was no escape. Gorono frowned to himself as 3 shots rocked his ship. He really hated these flimsy Z-95s, almost as much as he hated losing. It was time to join Blue Leader. The sensor jammer. Gorono flipped the switch with activating the device and dove hard. In the confusion, brought him just enough time to come around and line up a shot. Nothing. Guns aren't working. 4 cannons and not one works? Things couldn't get much worse. The Liberator rocked as 2 of their torpedoes crashed into the ship. Fortunately, the ship's gunners had managed to take out 2 of them, but now things were bad. With no shields and no sublight engines, the Liberator was a sitting duck. Sir, by drifting, we will reach the jump point in 10 seconds. All flight groups, Gorono saying, concentrate fire on tie Group Alpha, then prepare for hyperspace. Red 2 reached Gorono first. Hey, can you turn off that jammer, please? I've got a weapons malfunction and my shields are gone. I will be turning the jammer on and off periodically. You're just going to have to do the best you can. Pick up your visual scanning. Red 2 was red in the face. Damn it, Haltana, get out of here. Just go. No, Butch, replied Gorono with an odd calm. Does that really sound like something I would do? Renegade leader broke in. Hold on, boys. We're almost in range. Flight, this is Liberator. Our hyperdrive motivator is malfunctioning. A shuttle is departing with our most valuable cargo. Please see it safely to its destination. All right, Gold Group. Protect the shuttle and jump with it. Red 2, come with me. We're going with that shuttle, Gorono ordered. But what about the Razor? Red 2 replied. Gorono replied firmly, you have your orders. The cargo on that shuttle is more important than anything else in this mission. All remaining flight groups, protect the Liberator to the best of your ability. Good luck, Red Leader, and may the Force be with you, Renegade Leader said. Gorono winced. He was tempted to take off on his own crusade. These rebels were driving him insane. Excellent! Jump immediately! The Liberator's hyperdrive had just been repaired. Gorono smiled and engaged his motivators. It was over. Ooh, it's time for a break. I'm seeing some people online are having trouble accessing the story, I think. So I'm going to see what I can do about this. I have no idea who's still on or was on in the first place. This is kind of a the software I'm using is called Be Live, and it's working pretty well as far as the chat, but I'm not seeing necessarily how many people are actually in the stream. Okay, cool. I think 3 of you were in here, or at least have given some sort of emoji at some point. I think I see that now. Oh, what fun. Yes, okay. Awesome. Yes, I think that's actually running. Sweet, sweet, sweet. All right. One more drink and we'll continue on for, let's see. I can actually go another hour. So why not? At least I think. Something like that. Maybe an hour. Maybe a half hour. We'll see how we do. Chapter 3. On board the Imperial Star Destroyer Razor, the corridors were quiet. Captain Brahms, however, was not in the mood for hushed tones. Delta 2, you alone are the survival of the... I wish I could do a British accent or something like that to impersonate an Imperial captain, but I'm just not doing it at the moment. Sorry, folks. Delta 2, you are alone the survivor of this ordeal. Can you explain exactly why we lost 50 ships and these rebels only lost 5? The pilot was now wished the rebel scum had just killed him. Now he had to answer to this unforgiving, tight-necked, pompous, arrogant commander who was sure to either kill him or deport him to the Kessel spice mines. Sir, one of the rebel pilots had a sensor jammer that caused our scouts to go dead, and Blissix? Sir, without sensors, we couldn't tell who or what was on board. The transponder codes indicated that they had food and medical supplies. Very well. I will inform your commanding officer. Until then, report to medical for checkout. Brahms frowned. Blissix had escaped him again. On a distant, deserted planet, deep below the surface. We think that the extra generator caused the blowout, Dr. Blissix was saying to Gorono. I'm just glad you weren't hurt. Gorono thought. An engineer with emotions. What's next? Droids with personality? Gorono looked again at the war-torn Z-95. The auxiliary cannons were melted together and the wing guns were shredded into pieces. The shield generator had basically imploded. He often wondered exactly how that device worked anyway. How could something so small protect the whole ship? And looking at it in its current status, Gorono was lucky to be alive. Your sensor jammer saved my life, as well as most of the other pilots out there, Gorono said to Blissix, his eyes still fixed on the ship. I don't know if I could take all the credit, Lieutenant. Your flying was nothing short of phenomenal. You have the instincts to survive without sensors. A rare quality these days, for sure. Well, let's just say that I have no love for the Empire, Gorono replied kind of blandly. The two began walking towards an X-Wing that was being repaired. Dr. Blissix paused, then inquired solemnly, Is there a specific reason you're in this rebellion, Lieutenant? Gorono took a deep breath. Add psychoanalysis to this engineer's resume. To put it simply, I cannot rest until it's all gone. All the corruption and senseless violence. They killed my sister at home on Alderaan. She was very young, holding a toy weapon, hardly a threat. But instead of checking it out or taking it away, they gunned her down in cold blood. I'm sure they would have killed my parents as well had they been there. My father was a member of the Imperial Senate at the time. Of course, he left when he discovered what Palpatine was up to. He took another deep breath. I've been applying for a long time. My mother said that if I wasn't born, I flew out. I used to protect freighters and transports from pirates. Next thing you knew, I was protecting a transport of Mon Calamari when Palpatine's troops attacked. Pirates are one thing, but Imperial troops? They didn't kill the passengers. Worse, they were sent to forced labor camps. All because they weren't human. I started protecting other people, actually mostly smugglers. There were rumors of a rebellion here and there, and I joined a few crack operations. Then someone got smart and started the Rebel Alliance. I've been with them ever since. So tell me, why are you here, Dr. Blissix? Let me put it, how did you say, simply? We were attacked yesterday by the Razor, a ship that, I designed that ship's predecessor and all of the Victory-class Star Destroyers. I called them Star Defenders. Those ships were designed to keep peace in the Old Republic. Palpatine's men not only took the plans and the prototype, but tried to kill me for protesting. Those I had been working with made the horror of the Imperial Star Destroyer by using my designs. I've been hiding for years. General Dodonna is an old friend of mine, and he asked me for my help, so here I am. By the way, he added with a smirk, it is interesting to note that Palpatine merely cloned the prototype. This is funny because I was working on changing the design. The shield generators are very vulnerable on the Imperial variants because of the hull length. They assumed it could be expanded by simply making the generator bigger, but it doesn't. It creates a weakness in the field perpendicular to the hull right above the shield generator. Take out the two generator domes, they can't recover shields. They are big, powerful domes, but their size makes them targetable by proton torpedoes. Granted, my shields are some of the best, but this was a major design flaw. But I have to laugh at the irony that I have been running away from my own creation literally for the past 3 years. Of course, then there's the matter of my daughter. Lieutenant Haltana? Red 3, Collins, was coming towards the two of them. I just wanted to thank you for helping me out, sir. Think nothing of it, kid. It's all part of the experience. Just keep working at it. Thank you, sir. The greenie turned away, not looking back. Helping him with what? Blissix inquired, happy for the change of subject before he had said something he'd regret. During the melee yesterday, he flipped out. I just guided him back to the ship, which I hear your quick thinking saved, Gorono said, dodging the praise. Gorono didn't need anyone telling him how heroic he was. Yes, I tried some interesting techniques to boost the shields. But weren't we talking about you? Gorono dodged again. Add psychic to the list. Captain Antilles said the Liberator should be back in operation soon. At least I hope so, for your sake. You know how Corellians are about their ships. They don't take kindly to strangers tinkering with them. Two laughed, knowing it would all be fine, and to take the obvious tension out of the conversation. Neither of them desired a head full of pride. And if I were you, Doctor, Gorono continued, I would not beat yourself up over the starship design being linked to you. I've been up close, no offense, but the Imperial class and Victory class are very different animals in battle. I imagine they are more different than you give them credit for. Dr. Blissix straightened his posture and paused a moment to look Gorono in the eyes. This one was very different indeed. He could be trusted and would give valuable feedback without holding back his opinion. Lieutenant, General Dodonna and I are working on a new type of ship. If we are successful, it will be the fastest fighter in the known galaxy. But we need a daring and experienced pilot to help us design the thing. Frankly, you're one of the best. And I'm going to recommend you as our chief test pilot if you want the assignment. You'd be the first to take on this baby against the enemy. Your own ships won't even know you were there. What do you say? Gorono thought for a moment. Testing a sensor jammer was one thing. Testing an all-new ship faster than anything known, which would mean faster than a TIE interceptor, sounded downright dangerous. He smiled. Dangerous, yes. But if there's one thing Gorono had learned over the years, it was that he was only one man. He could only do so much. But if he could contribute to the development of a new devastating ship that many could fly, it would be the downfall of the Imperial Navy. He waited a few more steps to respond. Count me in, Dr. Blissix. I suspected you'd be easy to persuade. General Dodonna will contact you this evening. We should start work tomorrow. Remember that this is classified, Lieutenant. As far as anyone else knows, you are giving training seminars on flight techniques. Gorono chuckled. That's the best you could come up with? Well, I need a vacation from the cockpit for a while anyway. Not that a vacation was likely to come anytime soon. There was, after all, a war on. Dr. Blissix shook Gorono's hand and walked down the corridor. Gorono went back down the flight deck. Gorono's X-Wing was in a corner, not as well lit as the other ships. A bad sign. Translation, still nowhere near to being combat ready. Gorono frowned. His faithful fighter had been almost completely gutted. A young Mon Calamari was working on it presently. At least she's in good hands, Gorono thought to himself. He wasn't really all that good at starfighter mechanics. Without mechanics, Gorono would be dead. He had learned to appreciate that. But Gorono had a special affection for the Mon Calamari people. Having seen firsthand what Palpatine's troops were doing, they thought quietly, but the galaxy knew, any chance he had to build them back up was worth taking, no matter how uncomfortable it may be for him. Have I ever told you guys how much I appreciate your work? Gorono said abruptly with a wry grin. The young Mon Cal hadn't even heard him approach. Excuse me? Well, I certainly don't know how to do all this stuff. I wouldn't get very far without mechanics like yourself. The Mon Cal eyed Gorono with one huge eye, nodded his large salmon head, and said between what seemed to be the typical Mon Calamari slurping of air, Well, sir, if I may speak frankly, I appreciate your pilots of your caliber just as much. I can think of none better than yourself to avenge the death of my family. Sorry, folks, I tried. Oh, my. Sorry. Gorono simply nodded. It seemed to him that this whole rebellion was more about revenge than freedom. Perhaps this rebel alliance was more of a Avenger Alliance. It's a title of the movie. You need to take a drink. Oh, Lord have mercy. I'm already mocking my own work. The Mon Cal changed the subject. I'm afraid when the crew of the Liberator tore out the shield generator, they tore out the shield generator and the power supply. They were both damaged during the hyperspace. Wait, what are you saying? Gorono interrupted. Your ship will be on the ground for some time, sir. Actually, Gorono thought to himself, I'll be on the ground for a while anyway. I understand. I'm not going anywhere for a while, sir. The Mon Cal studied him for a moment. Sir, I was wondering something. I've been working on a way to enhance these standard shield generators. And you want to try one on my X-Wing? Gorono finished for him. Well, yes, sir. If it was possible for a Mon Calamari to blush, this one would be doing just that. Gorono thought to himself, boy, I've become quite the guinea pig lately. What's your name, kid? Donakber, sir. Well, Mr. Donakber, she's all yours. Gorono swore he saw the Mon Calamari youth smile, but that was just as impossible as blushing was. Excellent. I'll try and have it done in a week. That's just fine. You realize if this works, I'll be forced to call upon your services later on, Gorono added with a smile. See you around, kid. Morale was never high on the Imperial Star Destroyer Razor. The commanding officers had a high fatality rate, especially when Darth Vader happened to be on board. Although Vader was nowhere near this ship, the CEO was still a nervous wreck. Though the Empire had seemingly endless resources, losing over 50 TIE fighters would not sit well with the Dark Lord of the Sith. Vader would not have cared about the losses if Dr. Blissix had actually been recovered. They had gone to great effort to make sure that the ship was disabled, not destroyed. The ion torpedoes were not easy to come by. It was still a mystery how the Liberator had managed to survive the torpedo and bombardment, but nonetheless it had. Whoever this hotshot pilot with the sensor jammer was, he had to be eliminated soon. He was upsetting the balance. That just wouldn't do. There was some good news, however. The informant aboard the Liberator had said that they were headed to Dantooine. The CO grinned. If I could find and lead an assault on the rebel base there, Vader would surely make me an admiral. Helm, lay in a course for the Dantooine system and engage as soon as our support craft are recovered. Lieutenant Nita, advise command of our status. Just not good at these impressions off the cuff. And I will confess, people, that I had not actually read this story in something like 3 years. So this is as fun for me as it is for you, I hope. Gorono felt good. The bar was adequate and made a very good Tatooine Sunburn, Gorono's current favorite drink. This was his second. He felt good. A young man that had been sitting next to him about 40 minutes suddenly asked him, "Hey, you're Lieutenant Haltana, aren't you?" "Most of the time," Gorono said with a slight grin. "Heard about your last battle. Rumor is that you'll be a captain very soon. Let me be the first to congratulate." His hand. "Brack Wingsinger." Gorono looked at the pilot's rank insignia and shook the pilot's hand as the pilot added, "Sir." "Good to meet you, pilot. Flight officer, junior grade." How did he know about my promotion before I did? How does he even know me? Have I been that far out of the loop? Gorono had been busy. It wasn't very often lately that he had a chance to look around. Forgive me if I don't remember your name tomorrow," Gorono said as he held up the now empty glass of Tatooine Sunburn, simultaneously indicating the drink to be the cause and signaling the bartender for another. A fine outward excuse, because Gorono simply didn't want to remember. "I understand, sir. Hey, would you mind meeting me sometime in the simulator room? I would love to see firsthand how you did it. I'm sure you could show me a thing or two." A thing or two. The alcohol had filled its purpose. Gorono was feeling prideful. "Tomorrow at 1600. "Sounds great. Good night, sir," the pilot said with a huge grin and walked out of the bar. Well, this greenie really wants a whipping, so a whipping it is. There were reasons Gorono didn't drink very often. On top of the list would certainly be the feeling the morning after. Last night was the first time in 3 months that he had had any kind of alcohol. His tolerance was down significantly. Then again, when faced with 4 Tatooine Sunburns, one tolerance level wasn't much of a factor. And for some reason, he couldn't find the chaser pills he had acquired from that last group of freighter captains he had run cover for, part of their thank you package, along with 5,000 credits. Someone was on the communicator asking him to report to 231 on Deck 5. For who or what? Gorono said blandly, barely able to hold his eyes open. The voice replied, "General Dodonna wanted you there, but he didn't say why, sir. It is on Deck 5. "Understood. I'm on my way." Massassi Station, of course, had 4 levels. Deck 5 was a fairly well-kept secret among the base, which was recently discovered in an old temple and converted to a high-security development area. Deck 5 was approximately 75 meters below the surface of Yavin 4. Entrance to Deck 5 required clearance and at least the rank of first lieutenant. In other words, there was no way the person on the comm would have known anything about it. Gorono felt stupid for asking. Needless to say, Deck 5 was a quiet place. A little too quiet, perhaps due to its mysterious history. Even the automatic door on room 5A23 made no sound. General Dodana and Dr. Blissics were in the middle of a room talking over a diagram on a light table. The room was brightly lit, with the exception of the covered holoprojectors, which were showing 3D models of prototype spacecraft. One design that caught Gorono's attention was marked A5. It looked to be a compact ship, wedge-shaped, solid wings. The guns on the outer tips of the wings. The guns looked like they were able to rotate freely about the wing. Gorono liked the design. It very much reminded him of a ship he'd seen once called a spearhead. He was about to move on when General Dodana said over his shoulder, "That design is my favorite. Dr. Blissics prefers the A2 model." Gorono hadn't realized that they had heard him come in. He couldn't conceive how they might have, and it surprised Gorono how Dodana was able to get right behind him without being heard. Gorono looked at the A2 model. It looked like a stubby Y-wing. It looked fast, but not very maneuverable. Simply wouldn't do. "I'm sorry, Doctor, but I have to agree with the General. The Spearhead is a classic." All three of them smiled. General Dodana extended a hand to greet Gorono. "Lieutenant Haltana, glad to have you aboard. I shouldn't need to tell you that everything you see and do here is to be kept strictly confidential." "Yes, sir. Dr. Blissics and I have been working lately on developing a new fighter with speed potential greater than that of a TIE Interceptor and with better maneuvering capability than our X-Wings. We also want to equip these fighters with the sensor jammer you recently got a chance to use, redesigned blasters, and our new concussion missiles." Dr. Blissics put in, "Although this ship will have superior dogfighting capabilities, we want to use this ship mostly for reconnaissance and escorting." Dr. Blissics has also developed a new kind of engine and a shield generator especially for this ship. However, we still have extensive testing to do on both. All our computer simulations check out, but as a pilot, you know better than to trust them." "Yes, sir," Gorono said with a smile. "The other reason you were brought in," Dodana added, "is that we have noticed that you are a lot harder on ships than most pilots. You get right in there and get the kills and whatever needs to be done. We want you to push this ship to the envelope and see if we've got a keeper. I don't intend to have another incident like the ZX-45. A little spoken of incident right before the development of the X-Wing was the ZX-45. A good ship with a lot of great features. It seemed perfect in computer simulations and even in test runs. But when it saw combat, the stress of maneuvering and firing rapidly caused an overload which dropped the shields. Problem would have been spotted had it been subjected to harsher testing. They needed a pilot who would be willing to push the envelope. Apparently, Gorono was that pilot. No one would say they needed a pilot with no fear of death. It was simply understood." In the relative silence, the room's communicator stunned them all. General Dodana, "The Tantive 4 just reported in. They say that they have the plans for the new Imperial battle station." "Excellent. Inform Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar. Other than that, keep it quiet, Ensign." "Yes, sir," the voice replied. Gorono's confusion showed on his face. "Battle station?" Dodana sighed. "A lot has happened since you were away. Yes, the Empire has been secretly building an extremely large battle station with the ability to annihilate an entire planet. Up until recently, I didn't think our reports were accurate, but I guess they were after all." The matter-of-factness of Dodana's tone bothered Gorono. It was something he'd just have to get used to. The General was legendary for it. The morning progressed, Gorono giving the occasional expert advice on how to configure the ship. Soon enough, 1500 arrived. "Gentlemen, I'm afraid I have to turn in for the day. I'm helping a greenie with a simulation in an hour. I want to get there and see how we would have handled our last battle. See you tomorrow, same time?" "Same place," Dr. Blissics replied. "Thank you for all of your input, Lieutenant." "My pleasure, sir. Excuse me." Gorono left feeling important and needed for something other than dispatching Imperial pilots for the first time in years. Ooh, how we doing out there? Oh, there we go. Scrolling. Yeah. All right, we'll do one more chapter, and I think I need to call it after this. It's been a lot of fun. I count a total of 40 ties, Red Leader. They appear to be in 8 groups of 5 each. Red 3 continued, but Gorono had stopped listening. He knew the situation very well. All right, Wingsinger, Gorono called into the comm. You are now flight leader for the Red Group. It's your call now. Yes, sir. Okay, Red Group, form up. Attack pattern Beta. Let's take out Group Iota at first. Stay alert. Go now. Right behind you, Red Leader, Collins replied. Gorono had invited him on purpose, mostly therapy. The kid needed to see what a no-win situation the whole thing was. Frankly, the kid just needed time back in the cockpit. Butch was along as well. Well, Butch, Collins, don't expect anything we've seen before. Mr. Wingsinger says he has some surprises for us. Gorono said, partly in jest, mostly kidding around. Certainly, Butch said. You're in a pleasant mood today. Always happy to do away with some of the Emperor's finest, Butch, Gorono said with a smile, knowing he was unable to tell them why he was really happy. Cut the chatter, Red 2. Here they come. Gorono blushed a little. This kid had quite an attitude. Almost as if he'd commanded troops before. The ties were in a standard V formation. The wings opened fire just slightly before the leader. Gorono dodged with ease and opened fire on the ties furthest. The tie was quickly obliterated. The rest of the group did well. Collins managed to knock out 2 himself, and Butch and Wingsinger took out the other 2. Excellent work, gentlemen. Now let's take out Group Delta and get this ship out of here. Butch sounded nervous, like he wanted to say something that couldn't. Red Leader Eta Group is moving to intercept with Delta. Steady as she goes, Red 3, Wingsinger replied smoothly. Gorono thought to himself, this kid handles command coolly enough at least. Wingsinger continued. I want an upward V formation. Red 2 and Red 3 on the top wings. The upward V formation was like a flying V, except that the fighters were aligned vertically instead of horizontally. Gorono frowned and shook his head. The upward V confused the opponent, but had little tactical advantage. A reverse V would have been better because it puts the leader last, forcing the opponent to have to shoot all the others first. Tactical advantage was important right now. They were facing 2 groups of ties. Wingsinger continued, engaging sensor jammer. Gorono had almost forgotten about that. Interesting that it was being added to the stipulation already. And even more interesting that the kid knew about it despite it not being in the briefing material at all. Very interesting. Gorono's curious about the results this time, but engaging the jammer would... Red Leader, I just lost my scope and... Ah! Gorono looked left to see Butch's Z95 explode in a fireball. The Imperials had them in visual contact, therefore they didn't need any sensors. He would need to commend the simulator programmer for that little detail. Collins was next. Suddenly, 6 TIE fighters opened up fire on Gorono. His eyes opened wide in surprise as he pushed hard on the flight stick. The acceleration compensators seemed to be working fine, and he lost them. Unfortunately, without sensors, he had no idea where the ties were. Red Leader cursed, and suddenly Gorono's sensors were back online. That meant the Greenie was dead, and 10 TIE fighters opened fire on him. The eject light came on, and there was an alarm, and then suddenly everything went black. Computer, room lights, Gorono said with a bland expression. So that's what being shot down felt like. Not pleasant. Butch was laughing. Or was it taunting? The mighty Gorono Haltana takes a fall. Shut up, Butch. I had help. Besides, I recall you were the first to go, Gorono countered quickly. Butch was still laughing, however. Well, Wingsinger, congratulations. Mr. Haltana here has never been shot down, not even in simulations. Thanks to you, I think we have knocked his ego down a notch or 2. Wingsinger was blushing. The sensor jammer. Damn it. The sensor jammer. Ballistics wanted this thing on the new ship, Gorono thought to himself. It would be useless unless the pilot was alone. He dismissed the thought. Something to think about for tomorrow. Collins, good effort. Thank you, sir, but I would have loved to see how you managed to take on all those ties yourself before. Windsinger was dumbstruck. You mean you've flown this mission before, sir? Gorono gave a slight smile. This was the mission we flew right before you came here, the Liberator Rescue. Oh, the mission to rescue Dr. Ballistics. Yes. Gorono realized his mistake as soon as he said it. That was not supposed to be discussed with anyone. So, the kid continued, are you working with Dr. Ballistics and General Dodonna on the new fighter? Collins and Butch fixed their gazes tightly on Gorono. Gorono somehow managed to not change his expression in the slightest. New fighter? Haven't heard anything about it. Oh, Windsinger said. I figured that's why you went down to Deck 5 this morning. Never mind. How the hell does this kid know about that, or even about Deck 5? And why the hell is he asking, so are you going to show me how you did it, sir? Collins asked. Gorono was relieved for the slight change in the subject. Okay. He went to the computer simulation control panel and set it for 3D tactical display. Computer, begin simulation playback of Haltana Liberator Simulation 1. The room filled with stars and fighters engaged in battle. The simulation played out, and the kid's jaw dropped. You ordered Red 2 and 3 to stay behind? Yes, to me, the whole setup looked like a diversion, which it was. The hard battle took place when the Razor arrives behind all of us. So how did you manage to take out all those ties? Well, I had to do it with instinct and that sensor jammer. I never let them see me coming visually if I can avoid it. The vertical V is easy to see and clumsy. I came straight at them, engaged the jammer, and came up from the bottom. Imperial forces tend to fight horizontally, like they were still on planet or something. Something you can take advantage of. The key is staying calm and focused. What about the team? We had about 5 seconds to figure out a plan. I didn't want to take risks with my wing's life. If we would have sat down and discussed these maneuvers first, then sure, I would have brought them along. But not this time. It was too risky. We wouldn't know where each other were, and it would be confused. Confusion is a worse enemy than the Imperials. I see, Wingsinger said. Better luck next time, pilot. Computer, lights. Gorono left the room wondering what had just happened. This Windsinger was awfully inquisitive. More so than average. And how in the world did he know about the new ship? Something was just not right. Gorono would have to watch what he said from now on. The Dark Lord of the Sith. That again. Oh my gosh. The Dark Lord of the Sith stirred within his meditation chamber. Though designed to block much of the outside world and allow the disorientation and constant pain of the mechanical composition of the majority of his body, this trip through hyperspace allowed a familiar premonition to creep in. A memory of his mother, a feeling of fire. His skin was on fire. At first, Vader assumed it to be merely another phantom limb. Some say another one of the phantom limb sensations that plagued him all those years ago, but this was different. As he drew his focus, he realized the reason. It was not a sensation he was feeling, rather of someone with whom he'd been loosely connected. It was his stepbrother, Owen Lars, and his wife, Baru. Something happening. Pain. They were burning alive. For a moment, I felt sadness, pity, but only for a moment. Something else was present here. Something shadowy, hidden for years from his attention. It was almost as if he himself had been there. A name. Skywalker. Impossible. The Sith Lord drew in all his feelings. with all the might he had mastered the Force through the dark side and his prior teacher, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan Kenobi. He has been on Tatooine for many years, but why? Why such a forgotten and desolate place? There were other places he could have hidden from Vader, places where his presence would be less obvious. He must have had a purpose. Vader put it together then, and allowed a sinister smile that no one would ever see in the blackness of his chamber. Obi-Wan was hiding something, channeling his efforts for years to shield Vader from finding Skywalker. Luke. The sensation ended abruptly before Vader could focus in on what this strange relative felt like. The comm was beeping. Imperial Star Destroyer had come out of hyperspace and was approaching Tarkin's Death Star. Why his master had chosen to construct this monstrosity was little more than intimidation. It was beyond his ability to understand. Vader felt it was an obvious waste. After all, the construction of this thing had taken the resources of the equivalent of several entire worlds, and his master intended at least one more. So it was confusing that the Emperor had allowed it to be built. It was a distraction. Such power was not the cause for fear in the galaxy. The Force, channeled through the dark side, had the power to give and take life, to direct entire civilizations and manipulate the very fabric of time. It bound all things, and Vader and his master, the few remaining that could wield its power. But their numbers were growing, silently, unaware of even each other. Positioned strategically, the Force was not dead. It was alive and well. So it was of no surprise then, when later that morning he and Tarkin walked into an active debate as to the proper use of the Death Star. Tarkin's position was obvious. He said what he had always said, that fear would keep the local systems in line, fear of this battle station. Admiral Motti leaned across the table, audacious, cocky. He was like so many, blind to the power of the Force. But this one crossed a line. He claimed the temporary piece of technology was the ultimate power in the universe. Such pride, such arrogance, such... What's this? The puny little worm was insulting him. Sad devotion. Ancient religion? He wasn't just insulting Vader. He was defying the Master. This man was not trying to bring order. He was incapable of it. Yet the Emperor had him above an entire navy. A rage built within Vader as he walked behind Tarkin towards the man. The man was suggesting that we use this monstrosity in a vain attempt to gain more power. As a demonstration. A demonstration. Demonstration. That was what was required here. Vader raised up his arms so that everyone would know it was him doing it, and removed the air from the little imp's lungs. I find your lack of faith disturbing. Sorry, I just have to show you my shirt. Oh! Silly transparency effect. I'll try that later. I find your lack of faith disturbing. Vader could see that General Taggi was visibly uncomfortable. He was in the next... he was one of the few in the room making any sense, yet obviously afraid he would be next. Monty's face was turning red as the man attempted to loosen his collar, instinctively feeling as if he were being choked by it, but air would not enter. The man straightened his neck, bracing himself at the very table he had been leaning over. He was about to die. Enough of this. Vader, release him. It was all Vader could do not to have Tarkin join his pet dog in a similar vain attempt to breathe, but Vader had been clearly instructed by the Master to obey this moth. Yet a sudden sense that the power-hungry old man would soon be dead filled him with an odd sort of peace. As you wish. He was right, of course. Bickering was pointless. And he needed the focus. Princess Leia was next on his list, but she, unlike the arrogant and clueless men in this room, would be a challenge. He had rarely met such resistance. Chaos. It was as if she possessed the ability to push back against the Force and Vader's mind probes. But unlike the Star Destroyer he had used to bring her here along with the other prisoners, the Death Star was fully equipped with interrogation droids. More brilliant planning by his master. It was time to see what this senator was made of. All right, folks. Whew. Well, that was fun. There's a lot more to the story. In fact, I actually kind of stopped the development on the story. There's more to be said. I don't want to give anything away, obviously. I'm not going to do that, but there's a lot of fun to be had with it. And obviously, it's like as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, edit that. There's a lot of work left to be done to ever, do any kind of full release on this, but it doesn't really matter. The reality is Disney probably wouldn't want to put this out there anyway, so who cares? This is just a work of fan fiction at this point. So even though I don't know if I like the term fan fiction, but whatever. It's a story, right? Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. There's a few twists and turns and all that kind of fun stuff. And if I ever feel inspired again to finish this, there's actually 3 stories that I have mapped out, 3 books that I have mapped out. And so the second one is done. It's just not edited at all. This one obviously needs some further editing as well, but we'll get there eventually, I'm sure. It's the nice thing about fiction like this. It never really goes out of style. It never really dies away. It's not based on the length of time or time in the world. So, yeah, granted, it's not like it can't be changed by new movies, but that's all right. We'll get through it. So, hope you enjoyed that, and I am going to go rest for a bit and then on to my next thing, but we'll try and do this again sometime. Just looking through the comments if there's anything else. Yeah. My wife says, "May the Force be with you." May the Force. I'm always tempted to say, "and also with you." If I can do that. There we go. We'll be behind the scenes here, but I need to show my shirt. Fitting. All right, everyone, have a great evening, and may the Force be with you. If you're into that sort of thing. Cheers, everybody.